Alright, so it's time to add some perforation to these door inserts. We do have a little more prep work to do before we get to that point. I will put an 80 grit sand on the face of this PVC board, making sure that the glue and the leather adhere properly. Now, we've already done the proper allowance needed in between each pieces so that when we put the leather on the material and we lock them all together, it doesn't oversize this insert piece. That's very important. Now, we also have overlapping pieces on the top and bottom, allowing us to actually trim these pieces nice and flush, making the install process a little longer. Now, a big tip and trick here is what I'm gonna do with the perforation and how I'm gonna get it to line up on all 5 of these pieces. We'll glue them all at the same time, lay them into place, make sure they're tacked, and we're gonna roll it over. We're gonna get right into that process now. So the insert pieces are all lined up. You can see I have proper spacing in between each one. The reason I use this method for installation on doing perforation with all these pieces, unlike Alcantara, this leather is gonna have a bit of stretch in it. If you try to cover these pieces one at a time, most likely the perforation lines aren't gonna match up, and there's gonna be a little bit of wavering in there to where they're not matching up, to where if you do it on leather, like I said, it's a little more pliable and it has a little more stretch to it. If you glue them all down like this, everything's nice and flat. I'll stick it, I'll cut it, and I'll flip it over to the other side and rub any imperfections out of it, making it have the finish that I want, and everything will be lined up perfectly. Fellow trimmers, I have an impromptu Friday unboxing. I couldn't be more excited. So this is a trimmer that I've actually followed online for a while. You might know him from a show called Twisted Metal, I believe. I don't watch television, so everything I've been seeing him on has been social media. He's actually dropped a couple videos on upholstery, audio, and tech, which I appreciate that support. And from seeing those videos, he was talking about these shotgun door handles. That's what I have in the box. It did not come from this box retailer. Let's go ahead and open it up, show you a little what he has and a little bit about what it is. I'm really excited to have these in-house. I've seen them, like I said, on social media quite a bit. Kind of curious to how they worked and how they functioned. I did understand a little bit how they were designed, how they were built. Starting out with just a nice basic door handle, and then it's got this slot here. As I pull the actual bracket out, let me slide this over to the side. So this is the bracketry, and what it's going to do is you'll mount this to the door, and when you pull this right here, that's going to be your handle to open the door. Now, on the 57 Signature Series build I have going on, it's going to be really efficient because there are no other buttons on this vehicle. There are no window cranks, even though he has the little vent window right up front. There's also not your standard window crank to roll the window up and down. All that's been converted over to power. So all that was left on the vehicle was the door handle, which we are now eliminating, giving us a nice, clean design, a platform. I'm super excited. I can't wait to install. And while we're talking about Trimmers products, I do want to bring up the Twisted Artisan collection behind me. There's 17 colors available. I have about 10 up on Shopify now and my TikTok store, as well as some Twisted Artisan shirts. You can show your support by ordering through either one of those channels. If you look through the green screen here, I've given you a little teaser of what's coming next. It's a personal ride. I can't wait to get started on that. just a little teaser there. Once again, I want to say thanks to HMI Interiors. That's Heath Moore Interiors out of Texas. I hope you guys follow this install, and I can't wait to show you the finished results. Check out these sling handles from HMI Interiors. That's Heath Moore Interiors out of Texas. He calls them something slightly different, but with the last unboxing video, it didn't go as far as I thought it should have with this amazing product. So I decided to call them sling handles in my videos. You're gonna wanna check out his website. But I wanted to show you what they look like installed, or the way that I installed them, being the first time. One thing I would like to say, it would be nice if there was some instructions in there. So you're gonna wanna make sure you're a bit of a fabricator before you take on a project like this. But if you are skilled in the trade of fabrication and you do upholstery for a living, I think it's something that you can handle. Just make sure you have a few hours dedicated to the install process. So what I decided to do is actually do a cut-in with the door being so flat on these Bel Airs. Most of the time, even the old factory ones where they had the door handles built in, they only came out about as far as this sling bracket. So I wanted to keep it nice and tight to the door, even though I am doing a stack fab type interior and I'm building it out a bit, basically modernizing the 57. But with this here, I'm gonna say in total, you need about 3/4 on the back side if you're building this out, and you're gonna need another 1/2 inch on the front side. So in total, you're gonna need about 1.25 inches from front to back to make sure that this can slide. And that's between the back side of the door panel and the front side of the panel that you have. Now, if you have the space and you can put the whole bracket on the outside of the door panel, like I said, with this install process, I needed to sink it into the door to keep that flat look. Now, some of the things, like I said, that I really like is the tension on here. One of the questions I had a lot is, safety concerns and stuff like that. And that was even a question that I had is, is this gonna be safe for my client? And so what I did is, after the install process, I had a friend come over with a bow and arrow pull. And what that does is it measures how much pull is actually on the handle. So without this being hooked to the door, which is gonna add another 2 to 3 pounds of pressure, it had, in the very front stage, right about here, it's got about 5 to 7 pounds of pressure. And towards the back, it has about 12 to 15 pounds of pressure. And I think that's pretty solid. As far as a pull, this is something that's definitely gonna have to be intentional to open the door, and that's what I wanted to make sure was gonna happen. Now, another thing that I did is I flipped the panel around, I think. Like I said, there were no instructions, so I wasn't sure which way it went, but in my mind, I wanted the door pull to go back towards the back of the car. And the reason for that is, if a kid was in the back seat, a grandchild, and they reach to their front seat and they put their arm on the handle, I want to make sure that the door is not going to malfunction and open. Another thing is, if you're riding in the front seat, if you happen to jolt yourself, you hit the brakes real hard and you come to a sliding stop, you're gonna slide forward and it's not gonna open the door. And that would be one of the recommendations that I would have, is a very basic instructions. Because I understand that this isn't gonna install the same way from vehicle to vehicle to vehicle. And it's easy to critique somebody else's design. I gotta say, I love the functionality of it. I like the way it installs. I like the strength, overall build design of it. All the pieces seem to function well together. But I would say that I don't believe these were made in a jig. So I've had to do a little bit of adjusting from one side to the other. If these were made in a jig, I think it'd be just a little bit better. So that's a small recommendation, but I gotta say, I'm thoroughly happy with these. I think I will definitely use these in the future. But if you wanna see a little further in the process, we're gonna have to move to the other side and I can show you. So on this door, we're a little further along with the design process and install process. I wanted to show you before I got too far advanced where I couldn't take it apart. Right now, everything's kind of double sticky taped on the door, just so I can show you how it functions and what some of my ideas were behind the process that I went through. So of course, you're gonna have the pullback of the sling handle right there. That's gonna activate and open the door. Now it's gonna be mounted with 2 screws through here, which will be the L bracket of the main template. This is actually gonna come off. I don't have it mounted right now, which gave me the ability to put 2 screws that are hidden in the door, holding the mid part of the door on. Like you seen on the other door over there, it is pop riveted into place, so there's plenty of pull here. I can pull, tug, everything but stand on it because it is aluminum, but it's very well designed. I got a little channel that I've chamfered into the PVC board here, and it allows this to go all the way back, and it gives it a stop not to overextend it or over pull anything, break anything possibly. And then like I said, I have these two little screws here. Now I'm gonna go ahead and take these out. It tucks under here, and then there's a cover plate that locks all these in place that finishes these edges. I'll set that up there. But I just wanted to show you the behind paneling, what it looks like. So my regular template here, which is the Alumicore board, is cut out, and it has all the variants and flex in it to cover the main L bracket here, allowing the L bracket to move in place, and it takes up the allowance. So when I put the other piece on it, the finishing panel, it kind of floats over the L bracket here, allowing it to move back and forth. And then this piece is really just to fill the gap. Once again, I wanted to keep this door panel on the flatter side. Another way that you could have done this would be mount all of this on the faceplate if you had like a Chevy truck or something like that where the door panels normally stick out a bit further anyway. You'd have plenty of space to hide it behind some of the other design features that you would have. Once again, I'm very happy with this product. The function of it, it works exactly how described, how I've seen in the videos. Cosmetically, the door panel is very pleasing because there are no switches. Let me put this back together for you. There are no switches on this door panel. No window cranks, no buttons, no door pulls. It's just a very clean design. I'm not gonna put the screws in it right now, but it gives you the idea of what I'm going for, what you're gonna see when it's all finished, and it gives you a little bit to look forward to in the 57 build. Come back and check out that video. All right, so I just want to do a quick recap. Once again, I like the product here as far as the slingshot door handles from HMI Interiors, standing for Heath Moore Interiors out of Texas. I'm very pleased with them. If you're new to the industry, I'm going to say they do take a bit of fabrication skills to get these in there. There's a couple of different ways they can mount, as every door panel is different, but overall, I'm very pleased with the product and I would recommend it to you. So we can get the inside radius. I'm down to the last piece to put the radius on. We're gonna actually put it down here in this bottom corner and across the back side. I want to put all the pieces together and kind of show them to you. They're shaping up really nice. I do wish we were putting some pressed grills in here, but the client's a little conservative, so we're just building a nice, clean American muscle ride for him. Once again, I wanted to kind of show you where I did the rabbet bit for the leather. You can see I had to do two separate groove lines. One's where the double leather goes and one's where the single layer leather goes. I wanted to make sure you guys got a real good look at that. I'm gonna put it at a couple different angles here. Once again, when you get this far along in the build, every slight mistake can be very timely and costly to you. So you want to make sure you do some test runs and you put some other pieces together so that you're not to mess up your main jigs. Okay, so to make these pieces, I have a bit of time invested, and we don't want to mess them up when we put our radiuses on there, because then you have to completely go back and remake the whole piece. So I recommend doing some test cuts to find out the allowance for the leather. It took me about 3 tries, and allowance is something that I do know quite a bit about. So when you put the material up on here, you're going to want to run your fingers over it. And if you can feel the plastic before you feel the material, you're going the wrong direction. What I'm going to want to do when I mount this down is it'll actually push on that material just a little bit. So if you feel just ever so much the material before the substrate, that's going to be the correct way to do it. This way you have a little bit of compression there. You don't want it to be a big overhang cliff, but just a nice little small groove. And like I said, I had to do 3 cuts because it started the other way where I could definitely feel the plastic before the material. And then when I go to mount that, although it will work, it's not going to press the material and give you a nice clean line. All right, so we have all the main structures together, and you can see that we've already added our allowance in between the pieces and on the back side. Actually, this will be the rear of the package tray going to the window. There's going to be a transition piece where the leather is going to lay flat to the package tray board, and then it's also going to have to wrap around the back side of this template here. What I don't want to do, as it will cut flush all the way around as it butts to a different piece, and that's what'll lock the leather in place. On the back side, I'm going to need it to wrap around. What I don't want it to do is lift the template up, so we're going to have to wrap it a little bit on the back side so that both pieces of the leather can slide underneath this template here and mount flatly on the package tray base. So that's what we're going to do using the rabbet bit, and then we're going to move on to the next step. All right, so we have most of the main pieces cut out, and you can see how I've taken all my jig pieces and kind of double sticky taped them down to where I can get the perimeter ring that I want. Now, I am a little behind the times as far as my jigs go, and I've ordered some new Mobile Solutions jigs. Unfortunately, they haven't showed up quite yet. I'm hoping they're here by the time the door panels come together. My question to you guys, instead of tips and tricks, I actually have a question. Do you guys actually start from the center and work out, or do you start like I do from the outside and work in? Now, I'm a little old school, so when I had these templates here, everything was pretty much mold fabric at that time. You didn't have to interlock the pieces quite so much or so tight. Definitely there was no magnets being used. So I just kind of ask you at this point, how would you guys do it? Do you guys start from the outside and work in? Do you start from the inside and work out? And hopefully when we get to the door panels, I'll have some new jigs that might actually answer that question.